role that companies play in determining social justice issues and contributing to the discussion that we have on social justice issues is obviously in some circumstances problematic. But overall, we think it is much that companies have incentives to contribute to it in a way that is more good than bad, and that this, by this motion, specifically by the way they modelled it, actually make the situation a lot worse. So first, just in terms of rebuttals, we've had this model from the opposition, where they actually say that they're totally fine with corporations giving money to charitable things and giving money to causes, as long as it's anonymous and we don't know about it. This seems, frankly, like a pretty terrible idea. Why? Because maybe I'd quite like to know that when I buy a hamburger at Chick-fil-A, that they're going to give that money to an anti-gay rights campaign. It seems like something that maybe I should know. Secondly, if all they talk about in terms of like the interest of these companies as being to preserve their own privilege, I might want to know about that, and it's really problematic if they're able to hide it and make it anonymous. We really need a clarification as to how that makes the situation any better. And then in this example, like Donald Trump, who has like really bad views. No explanation as to how you're constraining the ability of individual businessmen to express their views or be that in a particular way. Actually, we think Donald Trump, in terms of his political views, are probably more constrained when he's acting in a corporate role, precisely as business interests, as opposed to the political role. But then this thing about, like, businesses control the narrative and do it in a really damaging way. And so, like, you know, companies like Starbucks that support gay marriage don't support campaigns for violence against trans people. But the comparative here is that neither really does Stonewall, right? Stonewall explicitly sold out trans people by allowing these fouls of veto. That's the gay rights movement as a whole, particularly because of particular incentives that, because of who controls that. But the comparative here is either you get Starbucks and a massive amount of money to be able to put it on billboards and to be able to start that discussion. Yes, obviously it would be more ideal if every single person who was a homophobe got to speak to a gay rights campaigner and have a prolonged discussion. Unfortunately, that's realistically not the case. What the companies do is provide at least a start that discussion to people who otherwise wouldn't have it. The bits of like, well, all these companies are hypocritical and they still discriminate. That's possibly true, but it is incredibly empowering for an employee at Starbucks to be able to go to national newspapers and say, my company says they support this publicly, but I have been discriminated against. Actually, on balance, that's again much more beneficial for the employees. Okay, first point is substantive. Why being neutral in a world that is radically unjust is fundamentally taking the side of the oppressor. Because if we live in a world where there is massive discrimination in terms of racial identity, sexual identity, being a woman, etc. And so to be neutral in this, to say nothing, is to take the side of the oppressor. It is to say that the situation in which we live is fundamentally okay. That's why often these companies do have incredibly beneficial roles. So, for example, companies in America that campaign on behalf of immigration reform. No individual company can solve this, but by coming together and actually campaigning for change, they can make a difference. Similarly, in terms of gay marriage, right? If you say nothing about it, you are complicit in the injustice that we live in today. If you actually say something about it, you are making a positive change. Fundamentally, there is no such thing as apolitical if you live in a radically unjust world. If you are existing in a world that systematically discriminates against ethnic minorities, against women and LGBT people, you are complicit in that. That isn't apolitical, that isn't neutral, that is siding on behalf of the oppressor. Moreover, we think it's just an obvious substitution effect here, right? Like, obviously businesses have certain amounts of money that they can see they are going to donate to political causes. Obviously some of these causes will be capitalistic insofar as they're paying the lower corporation tax. Again, that's not made up by their model, so presumably they're still doing this, only the money that they would have otherwise given to social justice causes is now being diverted into these campaigns for lower corporation tax. Moreover, a lot of social justice issues, such as LGBT rights, or like violence against trans people, is just not incompatible with also having lower corporation tax. When you do lose all of those things. And some of these things are actually really important, just in terms of like the actual social programs that they engage in, such as like McKinsey projects and workshops for empowerment of women, the fact that they go to the East End of London and run programs in schools there. These are actually things that you lose, and all the money that would be going to them is instead going to the kind of capitalistic funds that they think are so problematic. I'll take a POI now. Yeah.
Okay, that talk is entirely uncomparative. Like the fact that you now can't donate to social progress groups in no way affects whether or not you're also rallying for lower corporation tax. Like that's a wash.
No, it's not a wash in terms of you have a certain pool of money, and currently you're giving some of that money to social justice causes because it's in your business interest. It's also in your business interest to have lower corporation tax, but now you have that extra money that you can fund to lobbying for lower corporation tax. again, obvious substitution effect. There's also an incredibly important IR component to this, right? Because often businesses are our main way in the West of actually influencing governments in different parts of the world to actually behave in a more reasonable way. So, for example, when Obama called Museveni and said, could you please not pass a bill which will mean you get to kill gay people, Museveni was like, it would be really politically impossible for me to back down, and I don't really care what the US thinks. What the UK did, however, was call a section of UK and US business interests and convince them to call Museveni and say, we're going to pull out of Uganda unless you repeal this bill. And that was the thing that actually meant that this bill was watered down massively. What you're doing means that basically means that the West no longer has an incredibly important tool to force governments to look after the welfare of LGBT people and forces us to completely abandon them. Generally though, why does the metric of why the good outweighs the bad? Firstly, like I said, it doesn't get rid of all the lobbying, all the corporation tax, all of the kind of like capitalistic business interests. More problematic is they just now do it anonymously. That's incredibly problematic. But in general, why businesses have an interest to do things that are quite good generally and are quite positive? Because being good sells. The vast majority of businesses, when they campaign on these social justice issues, do so in uncontroversial ways. Why? Because they want to maximise their consumer base, right? The few examples where companies like Chick-fil-A or Hobby Lobby go out and actually do something that's incredibly controversial, they have a massive backlash. So when Chick-fil-A CEO, who also Chick-fil-A was the CEO, funded the anti-gay rights campaign, there was an incredible backlash, and as a result, lots of other similar companies pulled back and were deterred from funding that because they were like, we fundamentally don't want to alienate that kind of level of consumer base. So the number of companies that you hear about in the news by engaged in these really controversial or negative campaigns are actually very low. Precisely because most companies have a massive incentive to maximise their consumer base by doing generic nice things like funding schools and all the things including corporate responsibility that will appeal to the mass amount of people. Very few companies have an incentive to violate that. On balance then, we think that they do much better now than they would do under the model presented. We're very proud to oppose.
Leader of Opposition, I thank you very much for the speech, and I call upon the Deputy Prime Minister to answer. Sorry.
So it's unclear exactly where opposition thinks that the good things and the bad things happen in this debate. Like, at the Popular Opposition at the same time says, well, you know, the corporations predominantly want good things and try to do good things, but on the other hand say that it's really bad when they can't fund things anonymously because maybe predominantly that goes to bad things. It seems to be unclear where they stand principally in this debate. But note that whether or not they can fund anonymously is actually not really the crux of this debate. Presumably it's reasonable to have a policy that is enforceable. Presumably there are certain things that we can't enforce. We think that reasonably speaking, we get a net benefit when we cut down on the main harms that we get from the kind of way that these movements act, though the kind of harm that they are conceded predominantly in their case. We'll tell you more about that. But also, while on a balance, it is not just enough to try to fight the bad corporation on a case-by-case basis, but when we remove all corporations from this debate, we get rid of so much bad message that even if we lose some good message in the process, we still think that it's better for the kind of movement and for the kind of concerns that they fight, that they push for. So, first of all, a couple of points about the important things that Olivia pulled that we don't think were sufficiently responded. Like, first of all the kind of harms you spoke about when these kind of issues are problematic. Note that the problem the previous speaker says that it's impossible to be apolitical in today's society, and there's a very polemic debate going on. Presumably that means that there are going to be anti-movements and anti-corporations who take up a lot of space in the debate, right? That seems to be something that is reasonable, because if you push issues from one side, and whoever disagrees with that are always going to push that. Note that Olivia brought a specific analysis where they would be more and where they would be stronger, because they are very much more likely to represent the status quo. That means that corporations who fear that they might alienate their customers now ask, where do we have the most customers? In as much as those customers predominantly are likely to be of the part that benefit from the status quo being the way they are, and not wanting to side with kind of change the status quo that social rights always lead to, we think that they are very likely to be risk averse and try to support the side anti that kind of social movement. But even if that's the case, even if we have sort of a balance of these two corporations and they're clashing it out all above the social movement's head, we think that's still a very bad thing. We think that the best message from the social movement comes from the movement where there actually are members who have experience that need to be addressed, where you have people who actually want to need better situation in their lives, and corporations are probably not the best actors to talk about that. So if you have massive corporations with lots of money duking out like sound bites and other things that they won't have to catch attention about where they stand in big social issues, you're probably not going to hear the kind of nuanced message. More about that, I want to talk about how this change is actually going to happen. Also, we had no response to kind of part of the action movement when they sell out. Like, note that the corporations have not very often have a good track record of the way they treat social issues. That means that anyone who has suffered or knows someone who has suffered, or some are averse to this kind of corporation, would probably feel alienated to the action movement when they have sold out. Like, this is particularly because anyone who's a member of a social movement group doesn't necessarily have the same priorities. Like, even if it's not like LGBT issues, I have other things I find important. Like, I am a part of other things, I'm also a vegetarian. So I might feel very strongly about certain issues apart from the movement I'm part of. That means that at the point when a movement sided with a corporation that might have a bad track record in other issues, I might want to boycott for other reasons, and then I have to make a choice between whether I want to support this very important issue I care about while sacrificing the other issue. This corporation nearly always are associated with these kind of harm. We think it is a very bad thing to make them force them to make a decision. It's sad that there's no engagement with that kind of point. Finally, we do think that corporations have a tendency to dictate their agenda, because when they have the monetary ability to be seen more, because they can get more publicity, they necessarily set what people talk about. And again, we think they have a worse understanding than the movement, so as long as they can decide that, we probably get very worse debate. No, thank you. Rest of the rebuttal is going to be interwoven. First of all, let's just briefly about the principle. Because we also think, apart from like the actual outcome of this, is a very important principle claim to be had, right? We think that it's very, we don't think that corporations have any right whatsoever to claim the benefits of being part of a movement that is like finally seeing some kind of, seeing the light, seeing some kind of success. They've been very often remarkably absent when things were bad for these corporations. They have no credibility whatsoever. There's no reason why they should have a right to go and claim the benefit of the publicity and the extra profit that the previous speaker spoke about, as opposed to they had no part actually helping them get there. Is that the majority of cases? We think it's good for the state to just back that kind of principle. But also, we don't think that these corporations have a right to redemption for past harm. Note, for instance, that when there were big corporations in Sweden that sold out gay people to unknown lobotomy and castration, because that was part of Swedish politics in the 70s, which we were very embarrassed about. It is, or ashamed, sorry, whatever strong words about. We don't think it's okay for these companies to get redemption and become the companies that are now pro this. Because that probably means that anyone who wants to come out 20 or 30 years later and get some kind of redress for those kind of harms, probably think they can't do that because they're challenging the champion. That leads me very nicely to the call-out that you take a crash first.
Okay, so you're worried about donations from these corporations influencing the gay rights movement for the worse. Isn't that more likely to be the case when they can donate to the gay rights movement but keep their donations secret so people hide and publicly criticize them while they're in your influence?
The point of anonymity is that they don't do the stake. No one knows who they are. If anyone knows that happened, if it's not just anonymous money, that doesn't happen. That's not the point. So, where do we get better calling out, right? This is very much about reliance, right? Olivia gives you analysis. We get worse calling out when the movement relies on these corporations. Note that while the corporations are stronger than the movement, these movements are still stronger than their particular members. Therefore, we think that if someone is going to call out bad practices, we think that this movement will be more likely to be able to do that. We think it's powerful when they can't do that because they rely very much on donations. And the contrast, when they're kind of calling out when someone can call out bad practices because it's based on hypocrisy, relies on that individual daring to do that. It still relies on going up against their employer. It still relies on going up against the champion of their cause. It's very unlikely they would do that. It's likely this movement will instead. But finally, let's talk about where real change actually happens. I think a lot of real change actually happens on social media, where that's where we get a lot of exposure through grassroots movements. No, but we very often gather support for things that can put pressure on politicians that change their incentive structures to pass better policy on these issues, when we get lots of people behind that issue. We do that when we allow the people who are the best spokespersons on this issue to be seen in the social media. But when I grab the social media with ads that look just the same, but with much trivialized issues, then we don't get that kind of support, we don't get that kind of exposure. It's much worse, and therefore we're very happy to propose this motion.
Open the government and Deputy Prime Minister, we thank you very much. Now we call upon the Deputy Leader of Opposition to answer. Here.
Okay, I'm going to expand on a few areas in this speech. First of all, the stuff about why corporations, specifically speaking up publicly, gives us access to a type of public reach which is so incredible for liberalization. And in this I'll include some argumentation about why we think the types of progressive stances tend to outweigh or have a bigger impact than the types of regressive stances that we see from corporations. In the second area, I'm going to expand the material on commodification. Before that, two extraneous pieces of rebuttal. First of all, on the international impact of this motion, which got no response from the previous speaker. We just think this is incredibly important. One, because regardless of whether or not you position yourself on the social left or the social right, we think that almost all companies in the UK or the US would agree that it is abhorrent to imprison or kill somebody for their sexuality. On that grounds, none of this like wishy-washy, you can't tell which side they're on stuff, stands as rebuttal. Nevertheless, they also prove to you that these organizations are uniquely effective often in enacting change. Why? Because often the threat of economic withdrawal is significantly greater than the threat of diplomatic immunity. Nevertheless, when it comes to big politicians, because it's public, you get all sorts of rally round flag effects. So sanctions don't even necessarily work very effectively in this country. You need behind-the-scenes maneuvering by companies. Hopefully, close the government will give us a response. Because quite frankly, we do not care about marriage rights as much as we care about the rights of tens of thousands of Ugandans to not have to go to prison or see themselves or their loved ones executed for the crime of being LGBT. Next point, no thanks, which is about anonymity. We think so. Obviously, the awkward bit of the mechanism, let's say, because especially when we get the clarification in Martin's speech that the donations themselves will be anonymous, so companies themselves won't even know where they're getting the money from. First of all, it is a legal requirement if you are an organization to know where you're getting your money from, and this is an important check to ensure that these are complicit in the money laundering from criminal organizations, which otherwise is often what they're used for, and anybody can donate large amounts of money to these organizations. Secondly, we think they're likely to guess it's coming from corporations if they suddenly have billions in their bank account. I mean, who else with that much money? So then they're trying to work out and guess which corporate interests are. In many ways, that might be the worst, because you as an individual corporation might turn around and be like, we're not actually that capitalist if you're giving to an LGBT organization. When all in this mesh is silent, there's not even that communication. So you're more likely to commodify yourself even more to a greater extreme. On to my first main point, which is about the public reach of these organizations. So an organization like Starbucks, when it backed gay marriage, had a specific, unique access to literally millions of Americans who probably weren't especially politically engaged, probably didn't personally care or see the point of a lot of gay rights. They might not have known a lot of gay people, but they picked up a cup of coffee and it had a picture of, I don't know, two women kissing on it or something, and they were like, support love. Or whatever nice thing they said, saying first people support gay marriage. This is important because it's just right in your face in this situation. You also just have access to think about these issues in your everyday life in a way that you wouldn't otherwise. Most people don't have everyday access to a pro-LGBT or a pro-civil rights NGO, but they do buy coffee or get fast food or go to Target or shop at IKEA or whatever. No thanks. So then begins with like why we think the good situations outweigh the bad situations in these types of things. First of all, it is not true that big businesses are necessarily socially regressive, right? This idea that rich people are often quite right-wing, but they're actually usually some of the most socially progressive people in society, just because stuff like that is detached from your economic position, but it's very highly correlated with being well educated in particular. On that basis, we think that there's likely to be probably a progressive bias in the types of like big money liberals. We often talk about like the metropolitan elite. Maybe closing government will say, look, it's bad when this is associated with a metropolitan elite, say in the rural heartlands, but that's not even a good enough response, right? Why? Because we see a consistent change over time. Like in America is this classic example of where this division you see most clearly. Even in the most rural and backward states in the United States, we see that younger generations are significantly more pro-LGBT, more anti-racism than previous generations. We think this is a generational change, so that's not even good enough to be at this point. Why do we think that the liberal side tends to win out in these situations? Sometimes you just need to talk about these issues. This was Kate's point about how not taking a stance means that you're complicit in the inequality. The issue about gay marriage in America is that for like literally 20 years ago, nobody would have thought that any state in the US would legalize gay marriage because people never talked about it. It wasn't an open political possibility. The moment you raise people's awareness and encourage a dialogue of it, people's reasons why it's so wrong, other than it's abnormal or I'm not used to it, get called to much more scrutiny, right? But you need to have a discussion to make people aware of existing injustice, which often people have quite a good internal sense for. In particular, normalizing these issues, right? Saying it's normal to have a mixed race marriage or to be in a same gender relationship is really important just to get over people's intuitions, but in order for that to take effect, you need to be somewhat immersed in this. Notice, right? In particular, the one example that we can think of on side opposition against is the Chick-fil-A example. Literally like 50 companies that had mass employment nationwide in the United States came out in favor of gay marriage. There is just an inequality of numbers, but also insofar as there are people on the other side, they were winning anyway when nobody was talking about these things. Yeah.
Why do you think companies are most likely to support social progress movements for specific messages?
Probably when it probably doesn't harm them in any very significant way. Nevertheless, we still think those nevertheless, we still think those stances are incredibly important to get past. Like, gay marriage doesn't significantly affect companies, but it means that kids don't get sent to foster care when their biological parent dies and their partner isn't recognized as having a legal claim on that kid, right? That's the type of thing that gay marriage solved. It stopped people not being able to pay their rent because they couldn't get tax breaks because they were being taxed to individual households, which meant they might get evicted from their home. Those are material benefits that you can't throw away. So then on this point of commodification, we get a lot of criticism at the moment, but the point is that scary, angry, radical queers are not very persuasive to the general public at large. Quite frankly, they're not very persuasive to me some of the time. So stuff like anti-trans violence, there's no reason why a corporation would be negatively affected by standing up and saying, look, we need to have better police support for transgender people or something along those lines, right? Or we need to have we need to have a better understanding of transgender issues. They can do that. That's not a contradiction. Maybe some of the most extreme anti-capitalist critiques are outside of those things, but we just don't think that all there is to social justice, right? So they can campaign on issues that do make a huge difference, and the other ones they stay largely silent on, I guess. Because like all the stuff that Kate said about how regressive issues get them a lot of bad press and criticism. So on that basis, we think that there are at least some benefits, and it's actually a proposition to say that the types of things that are essentially neutral on your business plan don't have a huge impact on the lives of LGBTQ people. Like access to trans healthcare would be fantastic because it stops people wanting to kill themselves when they hate their own bodies and they can't afford healthcare. A great thing that a company can do that needs to do publicly in order to normalize the issue and make it taken seriously. We're very happy to stand in opposition. Thank you.
First half of the debate. Going to the second half of this debate, we found a member of government. Okay, for all the newcomers, this room has very strong acoustics, so please try to keep it down. Okay. Best of luck, you obviously have a lot of support.
will handle two things. Let's look at the specific mechanism that comes from market forces that means that these movements can, like, the way the companies convey messages is problematic. And secondly, let's look at what happens when movements have to actively compete for public support. A lot of rebuttal. Notice to respond then to the idea that we get that essentially you can use companies in a meaningfully good manner to assist with like IR-related issues, like as regards like supporting or showing your distaste for the issues in Uganda. Notice that for the most part, companies are incentivized by profit and will not, for the most part, actually deal with issues like that. They regularly engage in horrendous practices where they engage in like hiring workers who are dying all over the world, and that's not an issue. So there are very small number of cases where that is beneficial. Notice like cases like, for instance, in South Africa, what actually happened was, for instance, with McDonald's not operating there was because the US placed specific like restrictions on their own companies doing that. So in that manner, it's not the company making the choice to do so. We think it's a very rare number of cases where they'll actually make that choice. That's not really important. Secondly, notice let's talk about how companies are structured. Notice what's very important to say is it's when we get the response from Crash, the idea is that it was a company will support an issue when it will have no meaningful effect on them. That's actually incorrect. Companies will support issues at the point at which it is beneficial for them because they're incentivized by their very structure to seek out profit. So the point at which companies, for instance, are going to engage in an issue like gay marriage is the point at which it already has attained mass appeal. So when you try and tell us that essentially you can forward these movements, what we're telling you in fact is that's a relatively limited benefit because the point at which politicians or companies are really willing to engage in these issues is when they've already entered the public consciousness at such a level that you're actually gaining very little. Companies want to seek out profit, they only support things when it's actually meaningful to do so, which is when people have already decided to support them. That's probably not an issue either. Question? No, thank you. Finally, then, just as regards that, we're still happy for like rich people, for instance, to donate money if they feel like if their rich people are like so inclined. That's fine. The difference, though, that we have with companies is the company's specific public reach through advertising and other things that ensures that their way of conveying message is problematic. Let's talk about market forces. Because the thing that you have to remember is the reason why it's very specific as regards a public support for an issue is you have to understand how companies go about conveying things they support or how it is they go about like spreading a message like that. Because companies actually aren't really telling you that they support an issue like solely when they tell you they're supporting an issue, they're also selling you something. They're selling you a product. Like that's the reason, for instance, companies ever engage in like something like that. The reason Starbucks supports gay marriage is so that you go buy their coffee or it makes it easier to buy their coffee. That's very important because the thing you have to notice is there are specific mechanisms within companies that ensure they will always craft particular messages that are pernicious. Firstly, notice the way we legally structure companies is they're beholden to they're controlled by a board of directors who are beholden to shareholders who seek the maximization of profit. What that profit incentivization does, it ensures that those companies engage in appealing to particular groupings. So for instance, when it is that they want to like convey, let's say, their support for the LGBT movement, they're advertising in other ways, what they're going to do is give you a vision of those individuals as straight, white, not straight, honestly, like gay, white, middle-class individuals who have large amounts of capital, who, for instance, you can sell to because you want to gain from those particular individuals, or you give people the message of the most, inverted commas, normal vision of what it is to be LGBT, because you want to like appeal to individuals who you're selling to who are non-LGBT who want to see like an understanding of LGBT that they can buy into, as opposed to, let's say, what would be considered less normal, like they won't deal with trans issues as much because they want to buy into what's considered like inverted commas normal. That is problematic because what happens then is when they're crafting the message of social movements, they craft a message that is most palatable to individuals. That means what we end up seeing and considering to the LGBT movement is, for instance, is like middle-class gay individuals. That is problematic because what happens is you marginalize those individuals who are most marginalized already, who probably need the most help. So we don't get this push. Instead, what happens is the understanding or conversation, like for instance, mass like trans suicide rates isn't really drawn to that. Instead, what we instead see is we see those middle-class, like white gay people that are easier to sell to or are more appealing for individuals to buy into. That is a problem. Probably on a consequential basis, it is bad because then we don't get support from those marginalized who need it. But secondly, we think we have a specific duty to those people to support them. Also, even the way they go about conveying the messages is problematic because again, they're selling you something. So when, for instance, they deal with pride, they don't want to talk about politics or political message, but they actually want to convey, for instance, a party. So when Absolute Vodka supporters, they don't want you to consider the political messages, so they craft the message away from those like issues that people want to be entering the public consciousness. That is problematic because at that point we're no longer able to use those movements to actually deal with the issues that need to be considered to see those rights go forward. Because when I told you that already they only appeal to that which has already attained mass appeal, it means you don't really get much further on the issues that are most important. You simply greater support for the issues that we all consider to be important already. That means that we don't get the kind of like movement we do need, or the kind of or impetus towards issues, let's say trans issues, that are probably most important because they're the ones who most need help at the moment. No. What happens though also when companies now, or rather when those social movements literally have to compete for the public support of companies, and that's very important, because they have to do that is engage in respectability politics, where they not only are companies crafting their message for them, they literally have to craft themselves in a palatable manner to gain support of companies. That is problematic, because then again, when those LGBT movements are, for instance, conveying themselves, even they begin to convey, let's say, the middle class white individual. That is problematic, because those individuals who stand outside of movements who might benefit from it, let's say a trans teen, can't buy into it, because the message and the image that's been conveyed by those very movements is alien to them, or is not one that they necessarily see as accepting.
Even if Starbucks might be mainly catering towards its young cosmopolitan consumer base in the marriage, there are clearly very beneficial spillover effects on other people who don't fit into that category, and also people who just walk past Starbucks in their everyday life. It's normalized.
No, it's like those very companies you give examples of, but don't just have like a young cosmopolitan base. They've got a massive scope that encounters a huge number of people. So the point to which they're willing, as I told you, to actually engage in an issue is when the sheer majority of their base, I mean those kind of companies, is already massive and crosses all sectors of society have already agreed that's an important issue. So we think that the actual benefit is marginal in that regard. Then, what we tell you about crafting the groups and like engaging in respectability politics is problematic, because at the point to which the eyes of an individual who wants to buy into that movement now see that very movement crafting itself in that manner, it's problematic because I don't see myself being able to identify with it. So the solace I might have found in seeing that there's a movement that identifies with my issues that I can actually that I can feel supported by is diminished. We think this is problematic because those are the very individuals, those are the particular individuals who are most marginalised and most need that buy into those movements to see the support that they need, but also to see that there is like a movement out there in which they can buy into and help them. Because that's a problem, because we think also that additionally, at the point which you have to compete, you can't criticise companies for minor things, you have to present yourself in a pattern manner who never attacks companies if you ever want to get their support. We think that's a problem, so we think those movements are the very, very movements who need to be able to attack them, to fight them, and to say what they're doing is wrong. We urge you to vote.
Thank the member of government very much, and proudly call upon the member of opposition. Here, here.
The debate thus far has operated on this really bizarre assumption that businesses and social justice issues are entirely separate, but sometimes businesses wade into social justice issues. Hannah and I are going to explain to you why social justice intertwines in business, it directly affects them, and that's why they need to be able to talk about it. 2 points in the speech. I'm going to talk about specific businesses that are involved in social justice, why they necessarily need to be able to talk about that. Secondly, I'm going to further explain the point about that why they're intertwined, why you get less awareness of why they're intertwined on their side of the house. Before that, 2 points of strange rebuttal. Owen tells us that companies support issues when there's mass appeal and most people agree on it. Owen may remember we had a referendum in Ireland on marriage, and 34% of people voted against it. So it's quite strange for him to claim that businesses only weighed in with these broad support. Businesses literally risk losing 34% of their customers when they decided to support marriage equality. They did that because they recognised it was more beneficial for them to support that in terms of supporting their own employees, something I'm going to talk about later. Secondly, he says, we were given in the LGBT movement by businesses a vision of that being done, of being LGBT as being white and middle class and male. Recognise that isn't caused by businesses. That is a societal perception that exists on both sides of the house. If you look at a TV show like Looking, which is supposed to represent LGBT characters, they are all white, middle class, and gay, and male. That is why that continues on your side of the house, for the fact that is how society views that movement anyway. Because the fact is, corporations respond to people's own preferences. They do not create this by themselves magically their own isolated world. They're responding to people's preferences. More importantly, they miss the comparative. The comparative is not loads of other people stepping in and talking about like trans people of colour. The comparative is having more individuals who will lobby against it. The comparative is having religions stepping in and talking about having more power. They miss the comparative, they're losing this debate. First point, let's talk about specific businesses. Opening off tell you why like large corporations like Starbucks should take positions on issues like gay marriage. We're going to tell you why individual businesses that are involved in social justice need to take those. First example, private abortion clinics. Incredibly important given that states are terrible at funding public abortion clinics. Recognize that it's incredibly important for a private abortion clinic to be able to call out things like laws which tell you how wide your corridors have to be, meaning it's almost impossible to build an abortion clinic. On their side, they can't call that out because that is a social justice issue. They're talking about abortion regulation. That necessarily means that you get less discourse around that. What fills that vacuum is things like religions, like powerful individuals being able to talk about it. Secondly, a second example, private water initiatives that work in places like the DRC to get clean water to people. They necessarily have talked about getting clean water to people, presumably a social justice issue, because we don't actually hear a definition of social justice other than maybe it includes poverty, we don't know, like therefore we're going to assume it does. So like those charities kind of talk out about the kind of funding we necessarily need to have those initiatives built. They are incredibly important. They are often better than charities at getting that work done. We've seen charities often fail to like impact their like the work they do on the ground because they're incredibly detached. When like sometimes these businesses operate for profit, that means they are much better at doing it. They're able to work with those communities. You get none of that on your side. Secondly, small and incredibly poor communities. If I live in a poor area, say for like if I am in an African American community in the South, it is very difficult for me as an individual to talk about things like social justice and racism. However, if a business in my community is owned by an African American person who has a specific interest in lobbying about that can do it, that is a voice that you do not get on your side. They claim that there is like a shutting out effect. We say that shutting out effect gets worse on their side when individuals, necessarily the poorest people, can't even talk about those issues. Thirdly, like businesses just need to talk about things which affect the issue of poverty, which is a social justice issue. Recognize businesses, like small businesses, need to be able to lobby about things like tax credits. That means their employees lose less to tax and more take-home pay to spend on things like, I don't know, food and like being able to provide for your family. On their side, they can't talk about that because poverty is also a social justice issue. They have to frame it in some other way. They probably don't do that because they can't get traction around that and look more evil than they would otherwise. So you get none of that on their side. Instead, you get rich individuals talking about it. You rich individuals who are most likely to oppose things like tax credits and like raising the minimum wage. Before I go on, Lydia.
These are not examples of taking a stance of a social justice issue. You can still obviously talk about things that harm your business practice. For example, that's saying this harms my business practice. It doesn't require you to take a stance.
Yeah, but like when you say it harms my business practice, no one cares because as you say, if you're correct, like people don't like capitalism or something. Like on your side, it is far more effective to say this is harming women. This means women can't access abortions. We need more funding. That's obviously a much better way to lobby for change other than talking about like money, which is obviously not very interesting. Secondly, let's talk about why businesses are intertwined with social justice. Firstly, they never tell us why religions are still able to lobby for things. Religions, like corporations, are collections of individuals who often give money towards that collection. They're still able to talk about those things. That means that you arbitrarily chosen one section of society which is more powerful to talk about things than others. That is bizarre, it's arbitrary, you need to explain why religions can continue to talk about those things. Secondly, companies have incentives which are different to individuals like Donald Trump that they talk about. Why? They want to please their customers and make the customers more likely to buy their product. They want to make sure their employees like working for that company. That gives businesses a direct incentive to wade into social justice in a positive manner. We say individuals often do not have, because individuals are self-motivated. Similarly, religions have a hierarchical structure, which means they often don't take into account the views of their own individual members when they wade into these issues. You get none of that on their side. Thirdly, and most importantly, you tell people that social justice is not involved in businesses. Why is that not true? Because obviously if you have discrimination against employees based on their sexual identity, then that does affect them. Now the public just doesn't believe that is the case. The businesses necessarily don't have to talk about that. What are the impacts of this? Firstly, people are less aware of these issues because they aren't being talked about. Businesses aren't coming out and saying, "Look, we need gay marriage." Therefore, there's less focus on the policies of that business. But secondly, it is very easy for a business to say, "I don't have to lobby for things like employment, like anti-employment discrimination laws, because guess what? Social justice isn't part of business because that's what they tell you on their side." That means you get less lobbying from those businesses. Less businesses talk about it. It's also harder to then call out the very bad businesses who do discriminate, because they can just say social justice isn't part of business, therefore I don't have to talk about it. We tell you why specific businesses who need to talk about social justice can, but that's harmful. Second, we tell you whether a definition of social justice in business is bizarre. It doesn't live in the real world. I'm incredibly happy to oppose this.
Member of opposition, thank you very much. And it's time for the government whip. Here.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about how this affects social progress groups and how they operate. I'm going to talk about whether or not it makes us more or less critical of corporations and how they act. First of all, the points are rebuttal. We get this bizarre idea, like we said in the last minute of his speech, that like we now have less knowledge of the entanglement of businesses and social justice. I'm going to suggest, and I can be flippant about this answer insofar as we literally dedicated about 15 seconds of analysis to it, that whether or not companies are coming out and saying that capitalism is bad or capitalism is good, I have pretty good awareness that corporations are intertwined with poverty, for example, insofar as they prop up the structures of capitalism. Probably a more important answer is, though, you're never at any point to tell us why corporations have an incentive to lobby against discrimination laws or to lobby against like higher payment laws. Notice that corporations have a very good incentive not to point out the bad things about themselves. That's literally nonsense. Like it's intuitively implausible that corporations would act in that manner, and they don't. Secondly, the stuff about the stuff he says about quickly about the Irish marriage referendum, for example, because he says that when Owen says that things like same-sex marriage are already public consensus, which means that it's not as important that corporations get on board with it, and he says no, because 34% of people voted against it. Notice that the people who vote, for example, in a particular referendum are not actually representative of the country in which that issue takes place. Note that you get more people coming out to vote against something than you do necessarily the people in the middle when they think it's going to pass anyway. So that's not a representation of how people actually feel about same-sex marriage. Number 3, private abortion clinics need to be able to call out the minutiae of health and safety regulations such that we know, just so we know that private abortion clinics are pro-abortion. Do you know what? I'm again going to posit that we are aware, probably from the name, that private abortion clinics are pro-abortion. Therefore, I'm sure what benefit we're getting on their side of the house when they get to publicly stand, like they stand out like Matthew and Hannah abortion clinic. We're pro-abortion, guys. I think that's nonsense. That's absolute best for us. But importantly, know that even if it were true that we absolutely needed abortion clinics to be able to come out and say abortion is important, like they are not going to choose the unsexy narratives like we need our corridors to be widened insofar as that is exactly the reason Matthew tells you uninteresting. It is uninteresting that people do not care about how wide your corridors are, therefore that is not something that you get a benefit from on their side of the house. Finally, this stuff about like this weird thing about religions, how we're being arbitrary, we do or do not allow to take stances on stuff like not to go meta debating on you at all, look, just a little bit. Like, note that we don't, when we're implementing a policy, have to do every other thing that is also consistent with that policy. Insofar as it would be also beneficial to do that thing, we might do that at a later stage. But the point is, note that is the analysis stance for the thing we are talking about, then we win the debate by liberals and debating. So I don't know what you were doing there, but it probably wasn't a great idea. Okay. Also, if you did want to reason, it's probably because businesses are profit motivated, therefore all of Owen's analysis stands, whereas religions are not. They're motivated by whether or not to help. Okay, social progress groups, okay? We get this interesting idea from Owen. They say that Stonewall, for example, sold out trans people when they accepted the spousal veto, as in giving us an example of how social progress movements also do the bad things that businesses do. Notice that that's incredibly problematic for their side of the house, at the point at which now, when you're trying to compete, for example, for businesses' money, you have every reason to block out the parts of your social progress movement that are considered unpalatable. You are more likely, for example, to either be forced by a company or to self-select into doing this, to block out the parts of your social progress movement that you do not think that corporations or that wider society will accept. It forces you to engage in that kind of respectability politics. For example, within social movement groups, because you specifically select the versions of what you are and you think will sell to those surrounding corporations. Like, notice that when CEO tell you, no, it's just the societal perception that businesses are responding to. Exactly. Note that, for example, when it is the case that something is palatable to the social interest, that is something that corporations will get on board with. Things that are either uninteresting or boring, or things that are actively harmful, if that is perceived as society, are things that companies do not get on board with. So it's unclear what benefit you get from this role, and you get all those disbenefits. We also say that it happens between social progress movements, right? Because if you are the one who wants to compete for funding from this particular corporation, and you know that if you actively come out, for example, and do not block out those unpalatable parts of your social progress movement, another one will, and they will get the funding instead of you. So it forces social progress movements to continue to undercut one another in an incredibly problematic way. We also think that it is more likely that you are then going to get the most privileged voices already in the social progress movement getting that funding, therefore ensuring that the messages that get through are from the most privileged. Okay.
Please.
Can you grasp the part of where does the new funding, where the new voices on the issues you tell us no?
Here's a really interesting thing. Like, notice that Pride in the UK, for example, up to 2 years ago, functioned entirely perfectly without corporate sponsorship. It was something that we could have continued to do. So ultimately, when I get onto where the money is coming from versus what they can do now, that is probably something to bear in mind. Okay. This is a response then to the idea of like whether or not we can be more or less critical of corporations when we do or do not know what they are donating to. Like, notice that like I will say that it is specifically better when we can publicly point to this corporation as being anti-gay marriage, for example, or anti-gay rights. Note that like it comes out explicitly in Crash's speech that is a legal requirement to show where your money is coming from. That is also true, for example, for super PACs or for political donation lobbies. You have to point to where your money is coming from. Therefore, if it is true that they will just switch to funding no thank you political campaigns instead, we will still have that awareness of where that money is coming from. Unless, of course, they are challenging no thank you already took the POI, unless it is true that they are already going to go through the darkest circles, I think, channeling their money where you cannot find it. Note that it's probably still true that if you're trying to bury that you are channeling your money into anti-gay rights movements, you will still do that on our side of the house. You will not come out publicly and say, we are doing that to again not benefit that they get. Look, ultimately Owen tells you that businesses only come out in favour of messages that are actively beneficial to them. Those will always be messages that are already have public consensus. I am told that years ago, something that you were asked to debate was this how to allow gay marriage. That would be, okay, about gay adoption, that would be preposterous now, because the OT window has shifted away from what it is or is not acceptable. For example, when they tell you, like, the reason, for example, that corporations can come out against imprisoning people for being LGBT, that is because everyone already accepts that that is unacceptable. But you do lose, though, the ability of social progress movements to point to unpalatable things within those movements. For example, pointing to suicide rates in the LGBT movement, because that will not sell you a product. Pointing to people who are already marginalised, because that will not sell you a product. You force people to craft a message away from the most vulnerable towards the things that are already accepted. That is worse. You lose social progress ability to self-regulate what is important to them, and you give it into the hands of capitalists, who, as we all know, are shy to quite happy to
So thank you very much for coming to the web. And now to finish this debate, I call on the opposition.
Gestures of nationalism that gets the crowd outside. actually win the marriage equality example, but unsurprisingly the Irish background. I just point you to the town where I grew up, all like 7,000 of us living in each other's pockets. A town that's profoundly anti-marriage equality until one of the 4 shops that is in the town stuck up a "Businesses for Yes" little logo in their window because they thought that was kind of a nice idea. A couple of months later, all of the businesses in my town had those signs up, and unsurprisingly, we voted 60% in favour of the marriage referendum. Businesses are part of our community and they are affected by social justice issues, which is something that SIPROP have entirely missed. That is why they get to have an opinion on it. I'm going to be talking to you about specific businesses, as Matthew has outlined. I'm going to be talking to you about how social justice simply does not exist in the ether, and businesses should be able to weigh in on this. Rebuttal is going to be interwoven, because, you know, that's how this works, or certain clashes with theirs. Right then, okay, so specific businesses, because Matthew tells you about how particular businesses, for their own existence, have a very particular interest in being able to promote certain social justice things. So we give you the example of private water companies in various African countries. We give you the example of private abortion clinics that exist like across the world where abortion is legal. We hear from the response we hear from Tina is that everyone knows that an abortion clinic is pro-abortion. They shouldn't have to say it. What she misses is the specific power and interest that that business has in being able to advance a pro-choice policy. They have a greater interest in being able to do that because of the fact that it does affect their business. Thus, they are more likely to fund those kind of things, to speak out publicly about it because of that specific interest that we have. Secondly, then, though, we talk to you about how the variety of businesses that exist in our society, which is again something that these guys seem to only be talking about incredibly large corporations. We tell you that there are in certain communities, like in smaller communities, in minority communities, there are businesses that are often owned by those people. Business is not something that just exists in the land of the rich. We think that they have a particular interest often in being able to advance those particular social justice issues. We think that if you are a member of a minority community that is affected by unjust hiring practices, you are more likely to talk about that because of your specific interests. We think that it is unfair to prevent you from using a particular public voice, that being able to have your business, being without just having to put the money besides the fact that your business interacts with more people than you ever by yourself can do. I think that taking that away from that person is particularly harmful. The impact of this is that it lessens the degree to which that debate can happen. It lessens, and you disempower people who would otherwise be able to have that. We also hear like this stuff when they tell us that specifically that we have certain businesses are still able to donate to things, they're still able to have that particular influence. We think that actually makes the harmful things that you're worried about on your side particularly worse. We should kind of analyse necessarily where that money you can't specifically analyse how exactly that the interplay happens between money and business. It is much easier to do that and to address the pernicious effects of these particular businesses may have at the point at which they are public. We tell you about Shift today and the fact that there was a massive swing against these particular businesses. The fact that public opinion isn't necessarily always something that is subjectively malleable. I mean, that it's important that people are able to decide what businesses they want to support because of the particular influences that those businesses have. And social justice simply doesn't exist in the ether. Because when we talk to you about how other organisations get to have a particular voice, get to have that role, Cleo misses this in her response when she's like, well, religions are religions and they're particularly different. What's actually particularly important about this is the fact that businesses are as much affected by the decisions that we make about social justice as these other organisations that we allow you to have. They never adequately explain to us why specifically businesses that interact with society that is affected by the particular decisions that we make about social justice don't get to have that particular insight. And we think that they necessarily do, okay? Because we think that there are an awful lot of policies, decisions that we make about social justice that actually affect you. And the way that they are able to have that conversation is specifically persuasive. We think, I should have got the water down. Okay, so we think that when you're making decisions about hiring practices, when you're making decisions, just even a business might decide that they actually want to support gay marriage because they are interested in their employees and their employees' well-being. Cliona tells us in response to this that, we don't actually care, businesses aren't going to step in for that. They don't care about negative hiring practices. We think, first of all, businesses have an interest in attracting talent. We think that the point at which a business is able to say, we are excellent at hiring women, we have promoted all of these various policies to ensure that our business is a more comfortable place for women to work. We think that actually we're more likely to have a better class of candidates and be applied for that business, and that's particularly important. Go ahead.
Okay, so on our side, companies wanting to see progressive have more of an incentive to act in actually good and progressive ways, because that's the only way they get an endorsement of social movements when they can't hijack them themselves and
Right, because they have less interest in doing that because they're not able to talk about it, so they're not able to leverage it as a marketing tool, which is particularly important for businesses. People don't necessarily see what your hiring practices are if you haven't been hired by them and are working within the company. When you're able to loudly talk about it, you're able to get the particular benefit for that business that is particularly important for you, because the analysis will clear from closing that the fact that they are profit motivated. Because this seems to be the main issue that both opening and closing have with this. Opening tells you that they will necessarily undermine specific messages because of the fact that they have a particular interest in capitalism. We don't understand why social justice issues are necessarily, they cannot coexist with capitalism. Notice that a huge amount, that there's nothing inherent in, I think that capitalists also think that it's probably bad to murder black trans women. We don't see why that is necessarily different. But secondly then, we think that you still actually get to have that discussion of the anti-capitalist things within these particular movements. We don't think that you are shutting them out to the degree that that particular conversation cannot happen. What does happen though, is that you don't get the particular impact and the power that these businesses have within both broader society and also on a smaller community level. Because of the fact that businesses do play such a massive role within our public discourse, the fact that they get to have that conversation, the fact that you interact with them. Opening tells us the specific reach that these businesses have in communities. The fact that places like Starbucks seem to have people, seem to have lots of branches all over America, and they're able to have that particular influence. We tell you specifically in closing about how it is that because of the fact that they have this motive, that they're actually better at talking about it than necessarily organisations on your side that may not be able to spin that narrative in a way that is most beneficial. We think you actually get to have both of those discussions. We also think it is important that businesses get to have a discussion about the things that specifically affect them. We think ultimately what happens here is that you get a worse debate and you also shut out people from talking about things that are actually really, really important. Businesses can care about justice too, and that is why we are very proud to see